Okay, so the trailer for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man has finally dropped, and it's ass? Okay, so as many of you will know if you've followed the channel for a while, I'm a big supporter of this show. I believe that it'll do great things, and the last few years I've practically begged a lot of you guys to give it a chance as well. I was never a big fan of the hate this show was receiving before the trailer dropped, but a lot of people may be vindicated because, in my opinion, that trailer did not do the show justice at all. And there are 3 reasons that I have that I think let this trailer down and doesn't paint the show in a good light. And the first reason is the animation. Let's point out the obvious before we get down to the nitty-grittier points. The animation doesn't look at all great. I was once a believer that maybe this 3D, slightly MTV Spider-Man reminiscent animation style was actually going to be something unique and would work with this show, but it really doesn't in places. And I've seen over the likes of Twitter and Reddit the past couple of days, a lot of you feel exactly the same. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a big animation guy, so when it comes to animation, I don't really know much about it, and because of that, I can sort of look past it in places. But even to me, the animation was jarring in a lot of shots. For example, when Peter is in class, just look how his classmates move. And no, I did not slow this clip down. This is genuinely the frame rate at which these characters are moving. And for that one person that will point out that the Spider-Verse movies also mess around with the frame rates in places for different characters, well, that was largely a stylistic choice to fit with the theme of the film, especially for Miles Morales. As far as we can see here, there really isn't any reason as to why it should look like this. Some people will say, oh, that's just the style of the show. It's meant to be slightly choppy in places. But why? It doesn't even look that great. On the contrary though, it isn't all that bad. For example, a lot of the fighting and swinging scenes actually look quite good animation-wise, especially at the end with the Future Foundation suit. Also, while we're on the topic of visuals, another positive for me is actually the art style. Yeah, the animation sucks toes here, but the art style is actually really cool, and I love it. I don't care, you know, maybe people don't like it, I don't know. I just think the art style that goes for that reminiscent of the Lee Ditko era of Spider-Man books actually really works for a Spider-Man show, and if the animation was actually good, I think this art style would land so much harder for so many more people. But either way, I love the art style. The animation isn't great. The second thing I'm not a fan of is that this trailer doesn't really paint the story in any kind of interesting light. The trailer really makes out that this show isn't really doing anything new. Now, on the surface, that point may seem really convoluted, but let me explain. Despite new characters like Nico Monuro and new villains that we haven't seen before in a Spider-Man show like Butane, it doesn't really seem like this show is doing anything different to any Spider-Man coming-of-age story that we've seen before. And I know that's a hard thing to accomplish when there are so many Spider-Man adaptations that tackle the origin out there nowadays, but this trailer didn't make it seem like anything is new here, in terms of themes, lessons, and meanings. The best way I can describe how I feel is that this feels like a mix between the MCU Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man. You have the Norman Osborn taking Peter as a mentor story, just like you have with Tony Stark from the MCU, and you have the wacky high school drama from Spectacular Spider-Man. Despite the whole new cast of side characters from Midtown High and new villains, the themes, ideas, and story beats all seem to be leading up to the same things that we've seen a million times before. From other various Spider-Man projects, like I mentioned, most notably Spectacular Spider-Man and MCU Spider-Man. That's where it seems a lot of the story is going, and it kind of seems like it might follow the same path. And like I mentioned, yes, it's hard not to repeat certain aspects of the same story when you tell it more than once. Like, for example, this is going to follow a Peter Parker in an MCU-type world in his early career. 2 aspects which are heavily involved with the likes of MCU Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man. However, from this trailer, I get the impression that a lot of what happens in this story is going to be beat for beat very similar to the MCU or Spectacular. And of course, this is one trailer, and the story could be completely different and could surprise us entirely, so I'm not writing it off yet. To me, it seems like replacing the likes of Gwen Stacy, Mary Jane, Flash Thompson, Liz Allen, heck even Ned Leeds, and pretty much every other name associated with being a Spider-Man high school side character was entirely done to make it seem like the show had some originality. A lot of the themes seem similar to previous Spider-Man origins, and Peter's character and story doesn't really seem that unique from this trailer. His character seems very similar to versions of the character that we have seen before. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for Peter having new side characters characters and exploring new stories with those characters, like Nico Minoru, who I think should have teamed up with Spider-Man a long time ago. I think those characters would really work well together. However, from this trailer alone, it makes it seem like they replaced all of those original characters for new ones because the show needed to be different from previous Spider-Man shows, rather than mixing up the themes, mixing up the story, and mixing up different beats from Spider-Man Origins. However, like I mentioned, that's the feeling I get now, and I might feel different when a new trailer comes out, or even episode 1. Peter's character could change from now until then, the story could end up being different, and could completely throw a curveball that we've never seen in a Spider-Man show before, so we'll just have to wait and see. And the third and final point that I want to talk about is maybe a minor thing, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The backgrounds are pretty fucking empty. Now, a lot of people noticed this when the first look for the show came out in that Marvel Studios Disney Plus trailer. I didn't care much for the criticism at the time because we'd only had a few shots from the show, and it could have just been a bad placement or people were being overly picky. But oh my god, is it bad? On first watch, something fell off with this trailer. Something felt missing. And after having a conversation with my friend Ray over on Discord, he pointed out that during the butane fight, the whole room is pretty much empty. There is one lone fire extinguisher in the corner, and that's it. Apart from that, the room is pretty much empty. No tables or chairs, no office space, no boxes or homeware, nothing. Are you telling me this building is completely empty? Yeah. No, it's probably not. And just to make sure that this wasn't a one-time thing, I went through and scoured through the trailer to try and find more examples of this exact phenomena. One major example that I did end up finding was this shot here, which presumably is a scene from where Spider-Man is fighting Unicorn and Tarantula. I mean, do I need to say anything? Where are the cars? Why are there so little people? This is New York! Where's the rubbish? Where are the bins, police cars, fire hydrants, smoke, sewer grids, newspaper stands, deli trucks? Why does it look like this? Another example in an enclosed space this time is this shot from Midtown High. Now at first glance, this doesn't look to be as bad. Unlike the previous example, the focus of the shot largely encompasses most of the frame, which obviously happens to be Lonnie Lincoln, the teacher, and a couple of other characters. But when you look a bit closer, you really start to notice the lack of attention to detail in places. They're in a classroom. There is one singular piece of paper on this table here, and one pen. There is nothing written on either board, and everything seems spotless and clean. The classroom looks unlived in, unused. It looks like no one has ever used this classroom before. Not to mention, what lesson is it? Are there posters on the wall indicating what they may be learning? Is it a science lesson? Is it English? Is it math? Is it something completely different? Where are all the textbooks? It looks like absolutely no one has ever used this classroom ever before. And maybe that is the case. Maybe Midtown High has just been built and this is a brand new classroom. I don't know, but I think that's heavily unlikely. And the more you look throughout the trailer, the more obvious this becomes. The lack of attention to detail for the background really takes you out of the show, just in this one trailer. So I can't imagine how episode 1 is going to feel if the same thing happens throughout the entire episode. And this just isn't one or two shots, it's most of the trailer as well. The locations are that clean and look so unused that it's almost uneasy. It's almost like the show was entirely filmed in the back rooms and liminal spaces. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too far, but you get the point. And the most annoying thing about this point is because this show is only a month from release, they really can't change any of this either without doing significant delays. And this show has been delayed as it is. The overall sentiment from me is that we can't really fully judge the show until its release, and I have no doubt that even if the show doesn't live up to standards, some of the episodes will probably slap anyway. If anything, this trailer did not do the show justice, and it probably could have been done with showing a little bit more story to convince me that it's worthwhile, mainly because visually, the show is a little on the doggy doo-doo side, if you know what I mean.